That video that I sent you, of the Charlie Kirk shooting, you don't have to play it if you don't want to, but
With the last one you said?
yeah, I'll talk about that first since it's breaking news. Huh? Does it look weird?
Shoot it first.
Lord, this look like a straight up drink. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Shelly Speaks Truth right here on 2rawfortv.tv. If you are here for the first time, welcome and thank you for being here. If you are returning, welcome back, and I hope that you all do enjoy tonight's show. Now, what we do around here is we usually stream from a few other streaming platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X, I believe. But that is not for the entirety of the show. So if you are watching on any of those other platforms, you will have to come over to 2rawfortv.tv, and that is the number 2, the number 4. Wait, number 2 Raw, the number 4 TV.tv. Got a little mixed up there. So again, that is the number 2 Raw, the number 4 TV.tv, and that is where you will see the entirety of the show. And I do hope when those other platforms end that you all will go ahead and transition over to 2rawfortv.tv. And with that being said, once again, welcome to tonight's show. I hope you all enjoy. Now, I did not plan to talk about this tonight. It's not in the thumbnail or anything like that because this is breaking news. And some of you may know, some of you may not know, conservative political commentator Charlie Kirk was shot and killed today. And yes, that is unfortunate for his family and the people that cared about him. And he has passed on, he has transitioned, so I'm not going to go in on him and besmudge him. But the reality of the matter is that Charlie Kirk, in my opinion and upon my observation, was a white supremacist. So, you do have two different sides right now. You have people who are laughing, you have people who don't care, and you have people who do care. And quite naturally, in that particular situation, there's going to be a lot of debating and things like that. And, I unfortunately got into that a little bit earlier today on Facebook because, it is, I won't say my opinion because I've literally seen commentary of Charlie Kirk being very anti-black and anti-other things as well. But he had very anti-black messages. And here's the thing. Like I said, he has transitioned. He has passed on. So I'm not here to slander him or anything like that. But my thing is, you have people that do care about him. You do have people who are mourning his death right now, and that's okay. But you also have people who are saying, you're not going to tell me that I need to feel sad about him no longer being here because, he had rhetoric that was very disparaging to the black community and other communities as well. So, I said my piece online. I said thoughts, no prayers. And, people didn't like that. And they went on the attack. And that's fine because, like I said, there's people who did, agree with his rhetoric and his messages, and they're mourning his death right now, and that's okay. That's their right to do that. Just as well as it's people's rights to say, I don't care. Because, if they feel like he was very disparaging to the black community, They have the right to express the fact that they're not mourning his death or they don't care. And like I said, I happen to be one of those people that falls into the category of I don't care. I'm very indifferent to it, and I'm not mourning his death, and I have the right to say that. I have the right to feel that way. And with that being said, like I said, I'm not going to drag him. He was murdered today, which is unfortunate. And he does have a wife and children who are mourning his death. And when I heard he got shot earlier, I was laughing. And then when I found out that he had been killed, I removed the post because, I'm going to have some level of decorum for someone who was just murdered. So that's about all I'm going to do. And for the people who jumped in my comments and called me all types of names, that's your prerogative. But just as you care, and I'm not going to try to convince you not to, you're not going to convince me that I should care. I've had people tell me I need to go back to Liberia. I've had people tell me I came from a mud hut in Africa. I've had people call me a miserable cunt. I've had all types of comments, slung at me for my opinions, and that is fine. Like I said, everybody has the right to feel how they feel. Again, there are people that are mourning his death. There are people who are laughing at his death. There are people who are indifferent and don't care. And all of that is okay. Everybody has the right to feel how they feel. Someone did lose their life today in a very violent and heinous way, which nobody likes to see. I'm not rejoicing that he's dead. I'm just very indifferent to it. And that is okay. Now, with that being said, like I said, he does have a wife and children. I know they have to be devastated right now because, agree or disagree with him, a life was lost. And he had a family who loved and cared about him, and they are mourning. So I'm not going to be a part of that crowd of people that are online laughing at his death and rejoicing in it. Because again, his family is mourning his death right now, and I will have tact and decorum in that regard to where I'm not going to be, rejoicing in anybody's death. But again, it was a tragic death. I think we have a short video of what happened. He was because what he would do is he would go to college campuses and he would debate people on different topics. And again, like I said, I've seen him have a lot of anti-black propaganda and rhetoric where, he would push and peddle the fatherless homes and the black community thing and black men don't take care of their children and yada, yada, yada.
I have the video if you want to.
Yeah, we're going to get to the video in a second. So, here's the clip.
Violence. Counting or not counting gang violence?
Oh my God. Go, run, run. Oh.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Okay. On the ground.
No, because it's to my understanding that they did not catch the shooter at the scene. But I seen a headline just a little while ago before the show started where the FBI director said that they have captured the shooter. I guess all of that stuff is still developing. And, like I said, it's unfortunate when there's a loss of life. But this is it was a surprise to see it, but gun violence is very, very rampant in America. Like, so it's not really all that shocking anymore, unfortunately, when someone just comes somewhere and guns somebody down, because it's something that we see is very prevalent in this country, unfortunately, where people, they'll just pick up arms and go and kill whoever they want to kill. And again, that's something that's very unfortunate. But people are saying that Charlie Kirk was very pro Second Amendment, which is okay. And he said something to the effect that, in order for us to preserve our Second Amendment rights, shootings are pretty much like par for the course. So some people are saying, well, you died by your logic. And again, like I said, his family is mourning. I'm not telling anybody how to feel about it. People are going to do what they do. But it's just a very, another very tragic situation in America where people have the right to bear arms. And that does lead to people who, in my opinion, are extremists. They go out and carry out these types of acts of violence, against people, because guns are they're just so available in this country that, almost anybody can get them. And, that's unfortunately what happens in society, where we have the right to bear arms and people can get to guns. So again, this is a tragedy for his family and his supporters. I believe the president put out a statement to his family and things like that. A loss of life is an unfortunate thing. And, I hope that, his wife and children will be able to make it through this tragedy. Now, with that being said, I do want to go ahead and get into tonight's main topic, which is Trump's, political war is what I call it, with the governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago. They have been very outspoken against Trump deploying the National Guard into Chicago and the state of Illinois. And, a lot of people are saying that the mayor of Chicago is doing such a piss poor job with maintaining, keeping violence down and things like that in the city, that he should be embracing the fact that Trump wants to, send in the National Guard to quell crime. But again, some people are saying that the crime is not to the extent that Donald Trump is making it out to be. This is, political theater. Trump is over exaggerating. And, this is my opinion about it. I feel like it's a little bit of both. I do feel like there is crime going on in these cities, but there's crime, like I said about the DC thing. There's crime going on everywhere in America. There's a lot of crime going on in red states as well. And I haven't seen Trump talking about deploying the military to any red states. So that is what leads me to believe that there is a very strong political element to this situation. And he is looking to pretty much humiliate the Democrats, make them look incompetent and like they don't know what they're doing. And also, I feel like this is a way for him to get some support for ICE in these sanctuary cities, because I believe Chicago is a sanctuary city, and the mayor of Chicago has been very vocal about the fact that they're not going to have local law enforcement cooperate with ICE. So I guess Trump feels like, okay, if they're not going to have their local law enforcement, throw us a bone and kind of help us get the illegals out, I'll just go ahead and enact the National Guard to go in and assist ICE. That's the way I feel about it. I feel that he's using that they need to go in there because there's just so much crime and this overwhelming amount of crime happening. I think that's a smokescreen, and I feel like that's a cover for him to get the National Guard in there so that they can continue their ICE operations with the help of the National Guard. That's the way I see it, because again, the sanctuary cities are very combative. They do not want to cooperate with Tom Homan. They do not want to cooperate with Trump. So I feel like Trump is doing what it is that he feels like he has to do in order for them to, carry out the deportations and get the numbers that they need or that they're seeking to have as it relates to deportations. I don't feel like there's any type of unique crime happening in Chicago or in Illinois that's not happening anywhere else in the country. So again, like I said, I do feel like that is just a smokescreen for a different agenda that Tom Homan and Trump has going on. But, they're using crime as a front. And it's really upsetting the mayor and the governor, and it's upsetting some people in the city. And then on the other hand, you have organizations like Chicago Flips Red that is saying, okay, Trump, come in here and help with crime in the city, help with deportations, and give us some help that the mayor and the governor refuses to give to, the citizens and the inhabitants of the state and the city. But I do want to go ahead and get into a clip of, I think I'm going to play the clip of the governor first. I think his name is Governor Pritzker, huh?
Black guy?
The white guy. You know full well there's a slim chance the black guy is the governor. But anyway, we're going to play a clip of Pritzker, speaking about Trump and his agenda to get the National Guard into the state of Illinois with a focus on the city of Chicago. And again, like I said, the phone lines will be opening. So if you all want to call in and voice your opinion about this, and in particular, if you are from the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois, how do you feel about, Trump continuously saying that he is definitely considering deploying the National Guard into Illinois and with a focus on the city of Chicago to, combat crime and get everything situated and sorted out in Illinois, and like I said, Chicago in particular. Trump is saying that since he's deployed the National Guard to DC, the streets are a lot safer, crime is down, and, I believe the mayor of DC actually agreed with Trump on that and said that, they are noticing that crime is declining. Crime was already declining in the city, but the mayor spoke out and said that with the help of the National Guard, they are seeing,
I believe it was also the mayor of what is it there that's next to DC, Baltimore, that is asking. He apparently called Trump and asked him to get the National Guard in there as well.
Oh, that's interesting. A Democrat. Oh, the mayor, the governor of Illinois is a Democrat. What is his name? Not Illinois. The governor of not Baltimore. What's the freaking? Y'all forgive me. Maryland. Baltimore is the city. Maryland is the state. I don't think he agrees with that, because he's a staunch Democrat, and I don't see him cooperating with Trump on that. But I want to go ahead and roll the video of the governor, pretty much voicing how he feels about Trump talking about bringing the National Guard into the state of Illinois.
Come to Chicago. As I've said many times in the past, members of the National Guard are not trained to serve as law enforcement. They are trained for the battlefield, and they're good at it. They're not trained to arrest people and read them their Miranda rights. They did not sign up for the National Guard to fight crime. And when we call them into service, we are reaching into local communities and taking people who have jobs and families away from their neighborhoods and the people who rely upon them. It is insulting to their integrity and to the extraordinary sacrifices that they make to serve in the Guard, to use them as a political prop. If Donald Trump was actually serious about fighting crime in cities like Chicago, he, along with his congressional Republicans, would not be cutting over $800 million in public safety and crime prevention grants nationally, including cutting $158 million in funding to Illinois for violence prevention programs that deploy trained outreach workers to de-escalate conflict on our streets, cutting $71 million in law enforcement grants to Illinois, direct money for police departments through programs like Project Safe Neighborhoods, the state and local anti-terrorism training program, and the Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative. Cutting $137 million in child protection measures in Illinois that protect our kids against abuse and neglect. Trump is defunding the police.
As the mayor of this city, I can tell you that Chicagoans are not calling for a military occupation. They are calling for the same thing that we've been calling for some time, and that's investment. What safe cities across America all have in common, they invest in people, and that's what we're doing in Chicago. We need the federal resources to make sure that we're building more affordable housing, expanding mental and behavioral health care, education, all of these things that could reduce crime and provide real community safety. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars for a publicity stunt to invoke chaos and terror, the federal government should spend that money on proven solutions to crime and violence reduction.
Mr. President, do not come to Chicago.
Stop. All right, you're back in.
All right, so there you seen the governor and a small clip of the mayor of Chicago basically telling Trump, do not come here. We don't need your assistance. We don't want your help. We don't need your help. What we need from you is resources. And I find that to be very rich coming from especially the mayor of Chicago, because you heard Governor, I believe his name is Governor Pritzker. You heard him talk about how the federal government defunded them and took money away from crime prevention programs across the board. But he said that I believe they took like $170 million away from the state of Illinois for crime prevention. And then he mentioned some other programs that they took tens of millions of dollars away from and things like that. And here's my thing when it comes to them talking about them not receiving the funding that they need. The city of Chicago alone went, I believe, if not $1 billion, very close to $1 billion. They had a very close to $1 billion deficit funding illegals. So, like I said, I find it very rich that they're talking about this funding that they're not receiving, but you all squandered $1 billion feeding, housing, giving all types of freebies to illegal immigrants. So where was this concern for putting money into crime prevention and making sure that your citizens had adequate resources when you were giving them away to people who should not even be in the country? So again, it's kind of hypocritical of them to talk about being defunded when Trump was very vocal and saying that he was going to start defunding these sanctuary cities. And that is a risk that they took, because they're still running around talking about things like protecting the undocumented community. First of all, what the hell is the undocumented community? There's no such thing as an undocumented community. You can't have a bunch of people running around in the country who are not here by legal measures. And, people want to argue that, oh, these borders are colonial borders and borders shouldn't exist. And it's like, that's all well and fine. If you want to talk about the colonialism aspect of it, I don't disagree that, of course, this is a colonial nation. But at the same time, you have to adhere to the laws. But we have been going on social media for quite some time now. We're about 30 minutes in. And so we went a little long on the other platforms. And unfortunately, if you are watching on those platforms, we are going to have to end those platforms. I'm surprised they even still allowed us to speak on these platforms. But we are going to be turning these social media platforms off. And like I said, if you want to see the remainder of the show, you will have to transition over to 2rawfortv.tv. Again, that is the number 2, raw, the number 4, tv.tv. And that is where you will see the entirety of the show. So please go ahead and make that transition, as we are going to end streaming on the other platforms. Okay, so like I was saying, I find it extremely hypocritical of the mayor and the governor to talk about the amount of funds that have been removed, I guess, from their budget when, like I said, they were handing out money to illegals hand over fist. And they were not concerned about all the other programs that needed to be funded, resources for the citizens of their state and cities that were being taken away. And as they were funneling resources out of the community away from the citizens, people were going down to City Hall and saying, look, you are funneling these resources to illegals, resources that we need, our tax money and things like that, and money that is being received from the federal government is not being put into the city and the state to provide adequate resources that we need. Now, I've seen videos of the Mayor Brandon Johnson, literally, smirking and kind of, almost giggling at people that were going down to City Hall, very angry and very vocal about the way they felt about him mismanaging the budget for the city. And he didn't really seem to care. So now that Trump is talking about coming in to clean up the crime, which, like I said, again, I do feel like a lot of it is politically motivated. But at the same time, the governor has not been doing a very good job of maintaining the city's budget. And when resources are being